Welcome to the Academic Woman Amplified podcast. I'm your host, Kathy Mazak, tenured full professor, mom of three, and firm believer that the culture of academia needs to change radically. Women are revolutionizing academia within institutions that were not built for us. If you're ready to reject the culture of overwork, kick guilt and overwhelm to the curb, and amplify your voice to make a real impact on your field without breaking down or burning out, you're in the right place. And it all starts with writing. Let's go. Welcome to today's podcast. I want to talk today all about writing systems and why you need a writing system. So first, let me just say that if you want to get access to free trainings, if you want to make sure that you never miss a podcast episode, that you don't miss any of the free live videos that I do weekly on my Facebook page, then I encourage you to go to the link in the show notes to download my free PDF cheat sheet, 10 Ways to Make Time to Write. When you download that cheat sheet, not only do you get the beautiful PDF with 10 reminders that you can print out and hang up in your office of ways to make time to write, but you're also added to my email list. And that's where we send a weekly podcast email. We send an email about any live free trainings that we're going to do, like webinars and upcoming events like my recent Facebook Live series about how to work from home. Now, once you sign up for that PDF, you're going to get an invitation to join the I Should Be Writing Facebook group. So you'll also want to do that and make sure that you're looking at the events in the Facebook group so you don't miss a thing. There's a ton of free trainings and writing challenges and webinars coming up in the next few weeks, and I don't want you to miss anything. So make sure you go download the PDF cheat sheet, 10 Ways to Make Time to Write. All right, let's get started with the definition of a writing system. I mean, what is a writing system anyway? Maybe you think that you have a writing system, and maybe that writing system is to do a certain number of Pomodoros, which are 25-minute bursts every day, or to write a certain number of words per day. But maybe you don't exactly hit those goals. And so really, that is a set of writing goals. It's not a writing system. So what do I actually mean by writing system? Well, my definition of writing system is a set of practices rooted in a value system about writing that is employed strategically to help you meet your goals. So the key parts here are a set of practices rooted in a value system, and that those practices are employed strategically. All right. So those are the three main parts of this definition. And I'm going to kind of dig into those three main parts of the definition. First, let's think about a writing system as a set of practices. So what I mean by this is that you have writing practices, right? You have certain things that you do regularly, right? That's what a practice is. But what I'm referring to is not just a certain number of words or a certain number of hours a week on writing. What I am referring to is a combination of different things, including the writing itself, when you schedule it, how you honor that schedule. Writing practices also include how you reward yourself for writing, how you keep track of the writing that you've done, how you make decisions about what to work on next, and how you understand breaking projects into tasks, and also how you hone and define and refine your ability to estimate the amount of time it takes for you to complete certain writing tasks. So all of those things are part of a set of practices that make up a writing system. Now, in my course, the Academic Women's Writing Roadmap, and in all of my programs, we teach those practices. We give you a set of practices that then you will combine to kind of create the best system for yourself. So there's flexibility there, but all of those practices are taught to you instead of you having to reinvent the wheel. So that is part of my mission, is to kind of pull the curtain back on how people are actually getting their writing done. I'm doing that in the podcast, and I really dig into that more deeply inside all of my programs. All right, so the writing system is a set of practices. The next part of the definition is that those practices are rooted in a value system about writing. Okay, so we create those practices based on values that we hold about writing. And I have said this before on this podcast, and what we do in my programs is work towards this goal of putting writing at the center of your career. So part of the values that I'm talking about in the value system that underpins your writing practices is that writing is central to our careers, and that by putting it in its central place, we can build our careers around it, and that process actually makes us better scholars, better teachers, better researchers, and we are in better service to our universities and institutions and students and fields when our writing is at the center of our careers. Also, part of the value system that underpins the kinds of practices that we teach in our courses is this idea of feminizing academia. And what I mean by that is that academia as a system and our way to succeed in academia is built in patriarchy, and patriarchy is infused into the systems that are part of our institutions for getting promotion and for getting full-time jobs. And all of those systems devalue the work of women and try to ignore women as whole people. And so we want to make sure that our part of the values that underpin the practices around our writing, that those values honor women and their different roles in life. Sometimes those roles are as caregivers. Oftentimes those roles are as women who have fought extra doubly hard to get to where they are inside of academia because they have been swimming uphill the whole time. So that is part of what is in our minds, or what's in my mind, when I am crafting different writing practices that I can share with my community. At the same time, so those are kind of more macro values that influence or underpin our writing systems. But also, we want to have those kind of micro values as well, or personal values. And those personal values include the avoidance of guilt and overwhelm. So that's a big, big, big thing for me. What I'm trying to do, what I'm trying to teach in the podcast, what I teach in my programs, is that a writing system has to be built in order to withstand or repel guilt and overwhelm. So the writing system can't lead you to more guilt and overwhelm. It has to actually be built to repel guilt and overwhelm. And in addition, part of that value system is building momentum and feeling super positive about your writing. So part of the values that underpin those practices have to be that writing should feel good. It should make you feel happy. It should make you feel inspired and excited. It shouldn't make you feel dumb. It shouldn't make you feel frustrated. Okay. So part of those underlying values are it needs to feel good. So we talked about a writing system as a set of practices. We just talked about some of the values that underpin the writing practices. And now I want to talk about the last part of the definition, which is you're going to employ those sets of practices strategically to help you meet your goals. And what I mean by this is that you have almost like this bag of tricks. So your set of practices is like a bag of tricks. And actually, what I teach inside my programs is a baseline practice. Kind of envision a pyramid that's divided into kind of layers. The bottom layer of the pyramid is your base practice, like the practice that underlies everything. And then you layer additional practices on top of it in order to meet your goals. And you can employ those practices strategically. And so the system is not just one thing. It's not just write 500 words every day, or it's not just do 3 Pomodoros a day. And it actually doesn't have to do with doing anything every day. It actually has to do with a set of practices that you can pick and choose from that are going to make more sense at different times than at other times, because academia ebbs and flows, things change. I am recording this podcast in late March, the 29th of March, 2020. And right now, academia has been completely turned on its head. And many of us are teaching full-time from home with our families under quarantine in a very nerve-wracking and anxiety-producing time. What I want to make sure is that even during this time, you have a set of practices, a toolkit to employ if you want to keep your writing system going. So let me talk a little bit about why you need a writing system. So I talked about what it is and the different parts of the definition. Now I want to talk about why you need a writing system. So again, thinking about the situation that we are currently in on March 29th, 2020, you need to have a system. You need to have a way to get back to your writing if you stop. Because let me tell you, my friends, there will be times in your career and in your life where you will stop writing. And when it actually doesn't make sense to strive to keep that writing practice going. What actually makes sense is instead to pivot and focus on something else and then be able to get back to writing. So if your whole writing system is write 500 words a day, that's the whole system. Then as soon as you break that chain, you've basically undermined your system. And the re-entry point into the writing system is more difficult because you have to deal with all the guilt and emotion of having broken that chain. So instead, you want to have a writing system that is a set of practices, and that set of practices that you know how to employ strategically. You're going to be able to say like, okay, well, right now, writing every day doesn't make sense, but that's okay because I have this other thing that I can use, this other practice, this other strategy. And that's what's going to make sense for me now. Or it makes sense for me right now to not write. It makes sense for me right now to care for my students, to be the best online teacher I can at the moment, which is probably not a fantastic one, but that's okay, right? It's figuring out this transition to working from home. There's so many things on our minds right now, if you're listening in real time, that it actually might be a moment to stop writing. But here's the thing. You need to be able to have a plan to get back into it and to get back into it without guilt, without overwhelm. And that's what a good writing system will do for you. It gives you a re-entry point. So another reason that you need a writing system is that if you don't have a system, you may not have a toolkit to move projects out the door. And that's the strategic part. As I mentioned before, right? Academia ebbs and flows. There's moments that are more difficult than other moments. There's moments that are busier than other moments. And so we need to have systems that can adjust, that they can expand and contract to meet the needs that we have at any given moment in the semester or in the year. And so one of the things we really need a writing system to be able to do is to help push projects out the door and jumpstart projects. So you need a writing system that has that ability, right? So it like slow and steady, like a write every day, slow and steady method is great. It's great. If that's what works for you, then fantastic. But you're going to have to add something to that at some moment when you need to like really move on a project. And also like think about how you might be able to use a writing system to create momentum on projects that have kind of died out. So you need a writing system so that you have a toolkit to move projects out the door. You also need a writing system that if you fall off the wagon, you have a way to get back in. When you have a system that is layered with different practices that you can combine in different ways, then it is so much easier for you to restart if you get off track. If you decide to take a little leave of absence from writing, you have the tools that are necessary to get back into it. And you also need a system where you can start slow and ramp up. And like I said before, and ramp back down when you need to. All right. So the definition of writing system, let's review. A writing system is a set of practices rooted in a value system about writing that is employed strategically to help you meet your goals. And the reasons you need a writing system are that if you don't have a system, it's really easy to get overwhelmed by too many projects and guilt about not getting to them. If you don't have a system, you don't have a toolkit of practices that can help you really move projects out the door and respond to semester ebbs and flows. And if you don't have a system, it's hard to get back in to writing if you've gotten out of it. Inside of the Academic Women's Writing Roadmap, which is my course that is available in the first week of May for registration, inside that program and all of my programs, I teach a writing system that is rooted in values. It is built on the idea and the value that writing should feel good, that you should feel good. You shouldn't feel guilty and overwhelmed. You should be using your writing, and you can use your writing to take control of your career and your life. From those core writing values, we build a system that is time-tested and has been used by hundreds of clients that have gone through our programs. So if you're listening in real time, I encourage you to download that 10 ways to make time to write PDF so that you are sure to be on my email list and getting information about upcoming free trainings, webinars, and our Summer Writing Challenge, which is coming up starting April 27th. Thank you so much for spending your valuable time loving on yourself and your writing by listening to this episode. If you'd like to continue the conversation, join the over 7,000 academic women in the I Should Be Writing Facebook group. Just go to facebook.com/groups/I Should Be Writing or search for I Should Be Writing inside your Facebook app. See you inside.